After I left home, I would always send father and mother a check at Christmas and urge them to indulge in a few luxuries for themselves. But they rarely did. When I came home a few days before Christmas, father would tell me the coal and groceries they had bought for some widow woman in the town who had a lot of children and no money to buy food and fuel. What a joy they got out of this gift and joy of giving without accepting anything whatever in return. I believe my father would almost have qualified for Aristotle's description of the ideal man, the man most worthy of being happy. The ideal man, said Aristotle, takes joy in doing favor of others, but he feels ashamed to have others to favor for him. Let it, for it is the mark of the superiority to confer kindness, but it is mark of inferiority to receive it. Here is the second point I am trying to make in this chapter. If we want to find happiness, let's stop thinking about gratitude or ingratitude and give for the inner joy of giving. Parents have been tearing their hair about the ingratitude of children for 10,000 years. Even a Shakespeare's King Lear cried out, "How sharper the serpent tooth is to have a thankless child. Sorry. How sharper than a serpent tooth it is to have a thankless child. But why should children be thankful unless we train them to be? Ingratitude is natural like a weed. Gratitude is like a rose. It has to be fed and watered and cultivated and loved and protected. If your children are ungrateful, who is to blame? Maybe we are. If we have never taught them to be express gratitude to others, how can we expect them to be grateful to us? I know a man in Chicago who was caused to complain the ingratitude of his stepson. He slaved in a box factory, seldom earning more than $40 a week. He married he married a widow and she persuaded him to borrow money and send her two grown sons to college. Out of his salary of $40 a week, he had to pay for food, rent, fuel, clothes, and also for the payment on his notes. He did this for 4 years, working like a coolie and never complaining. Did he get any thanks? No. His wife took it all for granted, and so did her son. They never imagined that they owed their stepfather anything, not even a thank. Who was to blame? The boy, yes, but the mother was even more to blame. She thought it she thought it was shame to their own young life burden their young life with a sense of obligation. She did not want her son to start out under a debt, so she never dreamed of saying, what a prince your stepfather is to help you through the college. Instead, she took the attitude, oh, that's the least he can do. She thought she was sparing her son, but in reality she was sending them out into life with the dangerous idea that the world owned them a living. And it was dangerous idea for one of those son tried to borrow from the employer and ended up in a jail. She thought she was sparing her son, but in reality she was sending them out into the life without a dangerous idea that the world owned them a living. And it was dangerous idea, for one of those sons tried to borrow from the employer and ended up in a jail. We must remember that our children are very much what we make them. For example, my mother's sister, Bellevue Alexander, of 144 West Minnehaha Parkway, Minneapolis is the shining example of woman who has never had cause to complain about ingratitude of children. When I was a boy, Aunt Boila took her own mother into her home and loved and take care of, and she did the same thing for the husband mother. I can still close my eyes and see those two old ladies sitting before the fire in Aunt Boila's farmhouse, where they are troubled to Aunt Boila. Oh, Upton, I suppose, but you would never have guessed it from her attitude. She loved those old ladies, so she pampered them and spoiled them and made them feel at home. In addition, Aunt Boila had six children of her own, but it never occurred to her that she was doing anything especially noble or that deserved any hallows of thanking these old ladies into her home. To her, it was a natural thing, the right thing, the thing she wanted to do. Where is Aunt Boila today? Well, she has now been a widow for the 20 odd year, and she has five grown up children, five separate households, all clamoring to share her and to have her come and live in their home. Her children adore her. They never get enough of her out of gratitude. Nonsense. It is love, sheer love. These children breathe in a warmth and radiant human kindness all during their childhood. Is it any wonder that now that the situation is reversed, they give back love? They give back love. So let us remember. So let us remember that to raise a grateful children, we have to be a grateful. Let us remember, little peaches have big ears. Little peaches have a big ear. And what's what we say? To illustrate the next time we are tempted to belittle someone kindness in the presence of our children. Let's hope. Let's never say, look at this cloth cousin Swiss sent for Christmas. She knit them herself. They didn't cost her a cent. They remark may seem trivial to us, but the children are listening. So instead, we had better say, look at our cousin Swiss spent making this for the Christmas. Is not she nice? Isn't she nice? Let's write her a thank you note right now, and our children may unconsciously absorb the habit of praise and appreciation. To avoid resentment and worry about ingratitude, here is rule number three. Rule number three. Or instead of worrying about ingratitude, let's expect it. Let's remember that Jesus held 10 in one day and only one thanked him. Why should we expect more gratitude than Jesus got? B. Let's remember that the only way to find happiness is not to expect gratitude, but to give for the joy of giving and joy of living. C. Let's remember that gratitude is a cultivated trait. So, if we want our children to be grateful, we must train them to be grateful. Okay, understand?